Okay, welcome to Business Law 160. This is the Wednesday evening class. What I'm going to do is, now that we've taken attendance for everybody that's here, I'm going to spend some time going over the syllabus, my expectations of you. We're going to have a lecture today on what's on the syllabus, what I foresee the semester going, and then if you have any questions, you can always interrupt. Today's lecture is going to be posted. I'm not going to post all the lectures. I expect everybody to be here on time every class. There's really no reason. We've all been doing the Zoom thing, the virtual learning thing for quite some time. So we should have all kind of gotten a handle on it. As you've already heard, I have kids. I'm working from home. As a matter of fact, I'm at my parents' house, so they can hopefully try to keep my kids at bay while I teach. So I understand if you have similar circumstances. If a dog barks and you're talking, I don't mind. If you have kids that are screaming or that need your attention, I don't mind. If you're driving, I don't mind. It's okay because that's just kind of how things are right now. So it's fine. I don't mind. I do want class participation. To kind of give you some background, because I always start with this, let me tell you about me, the kind of person I am, what I do for a living. That way you know where I'm coming from. So I'm an attorney. I'm a full-time attorney. I do that. That's my job. Like, that's my career. And I teach because I love it. I love teaching. I enjoy lecturing. It's fun for me. It's enjoyable. It's different. It's where I can kind of let my outlet. So this is not something I do for the money. This is not something I do because I have to. It's something I do because I really want to and I really enjoy it. My daytime, Monday to Friday, I work as an attorney in the unified court system. So the court right across the Empire Outlets, that big building, that's where I work. That's where I am every day, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. I love my job. I love my career. I've been an attorney in the courts for over 10 years, and I absolutely love it. So I'm always encouraging students to do something that you love, that you enjoy, because it makes you naturally excel at what you do when you're doing something that you're passionate about. So I love what I do. I've worked on very high profile cases in my time in the courthouse. I now work with a lot of families, hands-on with guardianships, families that have children with developmental and intellectual disabilities. I lecture for many organizations, for the Richmond County Bar Association, State Bar Association, Trial Lawyers Association, all these associations. I lecture, I tell people, my colleagues, stuff about the law, which is also fun. Hold on, I have to yell again at the kids. So with that being said, I'm also very involved in the community. So I always, every semester, I urge students to be involved, whether it's charitable, giving back to the community that you live in, whether it's political, whichever political organization or affiliation that you have, get involved with campaigns, see what the political process is like, be involved, especially if you live on Staten Island. Get involved at the local level. That's how you can make an impact. That's how you can make a name for yourself. So I'm always trying to get students involved. I run the largest undergraduate internship program in the court system on Staten Island. Now, we've had to obviously take a hiatus because of COVID. And even though we've returned to the courthouse 5 days a week, a couple of months ago, we're still not accepting interns, but keep what I'm saying in mind, because if you end up going to law school, or even as an undergrad, if you do have an interest in attending law school or anything law related, or you're not sure, if you finish the class and you get a B+ or a higher in my class, you can reach out to me a year, 2 years down the line and send me a resume and say, hey, I took your business law class. You have something? No? Okay. And I can get you an internship. I was not born in this country. I was born in Egypt. I came to the United States when I was 7. My parents worked 2 jobs each while I was growing up. We lived in a very tiny apartment when we first came to Staten Island. I did not have any family members or uncles or aunts or cousins that were lawyers or anybody that was older that I could kind of go to for help. So I kind of hustled and worked my way up and learned and networked and did all that myself. So I try to pass on the knowledge I've gained to students, especially at CSI, because we all need to start somehow. Like we all need somebody to kind of help us get that first step. So if I could be that first step for you, I'm happy to do so. I need you to deserve it though. I need you to earn it. I'm always going to be respectful of you. I expect the same in return. This is not an easy class. So don't come into this thinking you're going to get an easy A, especially like this when this was a live lecture. I mean, I have to say, like, now that everything's through Zoom, this is the easiest my class has ever been, right? Because just of the nature of things, the way the exams are now structured is very different than it was when I first taught at CSI, even now versus, a year or two ago when it was live in the classroom. So I hope that you learn and get stuff out of this. My goal is for you to learn stuff about the law, to have an appreciation of the law, and to apply it to real life. So we have a syllabus, we have material that we're going to go over. I'm always going to relate it back to real life. So if you have questions, feel free to ask. I always have students that contact me, whether it's, during class or after, and tell me about real life situations that they have, whether or not they think they have a lawsuit against somebody, or they want to sue somebody, or they're being sued, or their family's being sued, or they're opening up a business, they're closing up a business, wills, trusts, any of that stuff. So it comes up and I'm happy to answer any of your questions. Always keep in mind though, I cannot give you any legal advice. I don't represent you. I'm not your attorney. I'll tell you what the law says, and then you can kind of take it from there as to whether or not, what you can do or what you cannot do. With that being said, I already told you that I have kids. So you're going to hear them, and that's just, life until we get back into the school, and who knows when that's actually going to happen, who knows. So right now what I'm going to do is I want to go over the syllabus. The syllabus is on Blackboard. So every announcement or anything I need to relay to you, it's going to be through Blackboard. So make sure you check that frequently. Your exams are going to be on Blackboard. Now the syllabus is on there. There's pretty much it. I don't give assignments out. You're not going to have written assignments. Your assignments are going to be read and come to class prepared. So that's all you have to do is just read, and then 3 exams. So let's get started with the syllabus. If you have questions, again, because I'm looking at the syllabus right now, you need to speak up. So just, say something to grab my attention, and then ask your questions. So the textbook is listed on here. It's Mann and Roberts 13 edition. I don't care which edition you get. So if you find the cheaper alternative than the 13th, you want to buy that, that's fine. The syllabus is structured in a way where it gives you the particular topics I want you to read. I don't have page numbers because depending on the edition you have, it may be the different pages. So just find the topic. If there's a case that I list that you can't find because it's not in your particular book, Google it. Google Scholar has a lot of the case law. The only thing is when it's in your textbook, they give you the summarized version. You're not reading the full cases. So it gives you like a synopsis. It gives you a conclusion. It kind of breaks it up and makes it a lot shorter than if you were to read the full thing. But certainly use your all other resources if you're not able to get the latest version. I have no problem with that. Grading system. So this is a very, very fair and simple grading system that we have. It's 3 exams. They are not cumulative, meaning the first exam is going to cover the first third of the semester. Once you take that exam that covers that first third, you're not going to have to memorize that stuff or retain it or remember it, although you should, for the final exam or for the second exam. There are topics, legal topics that you'll see that build up upon each other. When we talk about undue influence in wills, you're going to see that topic, undue influence, comes up when we talk about contracts. It also comes up when we talk about business formations. So I might not be testing you particularly about undue influence, I might be testing you on undue influence throughout the semester, but it's not it will only be in relation to the particular chapters that we cover. So the exams are not cumulative. The exams are going to be on Blackboard. It's going to be true and false and multiple choice. So as soon as you're done, you're going to get your grade. You're going to log on to Blackboard the day of the exam. Let me repeat this. I do not give alternate days for exams. Your exams for your class are those particular days. You have enough notice to make yourselves available for that day. If you miss an exam, let me be clear about this. You'll get a 0, okay? It's not going to be where, oh, I missed it. Can you take the other 2 exams and average those? No. So if you miss an exam, there's 3 exams, 30% each. If you miss one, you will get a 0. Okay, so make sure you're there for those 3 exams. Absent some, medical documented emergency, or you're, on your deathbed or something severe, don't tell me you had COVID. Everybody has COVID now. Everybody gets COVID. So it's not going to be an excuse. And if you are going to have something that's serious, I need a documentation that specifically says you're unable to take the exam on that particular day. And then it'll be up to my discretion whether or not to allow you to retake it or just give you that 0. So please try to, no, I take the word please back. Be there for your exams. 3 exams, 30% each. Fatty, you have a question.
Yeah, for the exams, are we gonna have to open it at the time of the class, or can we open it anytime during the day?
No, it'll be at the exam time, and they are open book.
All
So
right,
at
thank you.
6:30, you're welcome. So 6:30 is when it starts. You usually have about 2.5 hours to get it done, and it's open book. That's why I'm saying this is the easiest the class has ever been. So if you pay attention during lectures, and during lectures, I will tell you, write this down. So when I say write this down, it's probably important. So you should write it down, and it's probably something I test on. So you should write it down and pay attention to it. Yes, Brian Portnoy.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
The exam is timed. Do you know how much time do we get for the exams to do?
I usually give about 2 to 2.5 hours.
Oh, okay. That's
And
fine.
it's
Thanks.
usually no more than 10 true and false as the maximum. And I think the maximum, if I remember correctly, is 30 to 35 multiple choice. A lot of students, I would say the majority of students during these types of exams finish within, the first hour are done. And then once you're done for the night. Michelle, I can't tell if that's a hand up or if that's my mouse. No, that's my mouse. Sorry. Does anybody else have any questions about the exams? Okay. So 30, 30, 30, that gives you 90%, right? So the other 10% is based on your attendance. I'm going to be taking, for this semester, I'm going to be taking attendance every day. So for today, the people that were here, you just got 10 points for attending today. I'm going to calculate 10 classes. So if you're here 10 times, right, we're not including the exams, 10 lectures, you get 10 points for every class that you're here. So every time I take attendance and you're here, you get 10 points. And so at the end of the semester, what I do is it's very simple. I have an Excel spreadsheet. I plug in your exam grades. I plug in how many days that you were here. So if you attended 7 live lectures like this, then you get 70 points. And that 70 points for your attendance is now calculated as a 10% of your grade. So it's very, very easy for you to get 100 for your attendance, and that counts as 10% of your grade. I am not going to be doing extra credit. I include extra credit on the exams already, extra credit questions. Whenever I give extra credit assignments, what happens is it's a lot of time. It takes up a lot of my time to review it because it's always due at the end of the semester. So at the end of the semester, I have to make sure the final grades are posted within a certain period of time. I have to calculate your grades. I have to input it into CSI. And then what happens is I always have students that, go past the deadline and then ask me to accept it. And then I accept it, but then it's very stressful. I'm not going to give extra credit. So do your best on those exams and on the attendance. It's very easy, to do so. If you're worried about your grade, obviously you'll have an opportunity to improve as the semester goes on. And we'll kind of just take it as a case by case basis. You're going to fall like that. You're going to fall. Don't do that. You're going to fall and you're going to crack your head. So with that being said, that's attendance. That is your exams. And it's basically every exam, every class is just lecturing. I'm going to go over the material that you read and then explain it to you and then talk to you about, answer your questions about the material. And you'll get a sense of that now. Anybody have any questions on anything I discussed so far? My kids are young, so when I tell them like they're going to crack their head, I have a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old. The 4-year-old is wearing 2 pairs of shoes and going up the stairs. He can fall and he can kill himself, but that's what happens when you have kids. Anybody, any questions? Nope. Okay. All right. Let me see if there's anything else on the syllabus I want you to know. Okay. So I said I was going to be recording this. I'm not going to really post up the lectures because I expect you to be here. And what I noticed was when I post, like I'm going to do it now, like for the first class, but when I make the lectures available online, then a lot of students don't show up to the live lectures. So I expect you to be here for the live lectures at 6:30. If there is an emergency where I cannot attend the 6:30 class because, I have, work for the judge or an order to show cause or something, I have to prepare for the court. I have pre-recorded lectures that I will tell you, watch this. This is the lectures for tonight. And then there'll be a secret phrase that you'd have to tell me, or I'll ask you a certain question that you have to answer about the lecture. And then that'll be your attendance for that. I hope that really doesn't happen, but just in case it does, that way you're aware. So that's in case I miss a class or I'm not able to be there, at 6:30, I will send you a link to a pre-recorded lecture that you can watch. Anything else? And then also, like, you have to only be here for, not only, you should always attend, every class, but emergencies happen. And so if you have a doctor's appointment or something happens and you need to miss a class, email me and let me know, because a lot of the material is the same. I teach business law, I've been teaching that for years. So I can direct you to watch, the material, the meat and potatoes on a pre-recorded lecture. That way you're kind of caught up with the material so you can have an understanding of it. Okay, anybody? No questions? Okay. Moving right along. Okay. This is big. So I am a fanatic when it comes to cheating, right? If you're cheating, this is an open book exam. There's no need for you to cheat. And don't think that the person that you're, collaborating with knows any more than you. If I find out, and I usually do find out, when 2 students are cheating or more, I will fail you. I have no heart. I have no sympathy. There's no reason for you to cheat. It's an open book exam. That's multiple choice and true and false. The energy and the effort you spend in concocting a way to cheat with somebody, it's better used to actually study the material. Again, open book, people, open book. Okay, so that's big. There's, like I said, there's no written material, so you'll be fine. The way the grading system is, it's also on the syllabus. So depending on the grade you get for the 3 exams in your attendance, I kind of just tabulated the numerical grade range and then make that into the letter grade, and then that's what you get. Okay, I'm going to start lecturing now on material, unless you have any questions. Okay, so let's get started. If you want to get my attention, because I'm usually like looking at my notes, so you have to say something, make it a verbal announcement, okay? So, because I'm gonna now like go back to, back and forth with my lecture material, so I won't be looking at the screen too much. All right, so when we talk about the law, give me, if you could simplify the word law with something, what is the law to you? What is it?
Rules.
Excellent. That's it. The law is a set of rules and or regulations. Very good. Now, who makes up these laws or regulations? These rules,
The government?
the government, branches of the government. And there's also, and you're going to see this as the semester goes on, there are some rules or laws that end up coming as a result of case law. So depending on the type of law that we study, some laws are just made up based on judges making certain decisions. And then that in itself becomes law. When we talk about morality, the difference or the similarities of morality and the law, can you give me an opinion as to what you think or how the two are related, morality and the law?
Like laws are I guess a majority of laws are based around or dictated around good morals. Like we have laws that, we have laws that want to prevent you from doing bad things. So like you can't just straight up rob somebody. That's illegal. So
Right.
I would say most laws are dictated around good morals.
Okay, good. Do you think is morality or the definition of what's moral the same for everyone?
No.
Exactly. So what I may perceive as moral conduct may not be perceived as moral by somebody else. So whenever we talk about the law, keep in mind, and what I want you to get out of this semester is, the law is not black or white, yes or no. There's a lot of gray in between because we have to look at the totality of the circumstances. So if we were to go to what Nicholas just said about morality, right? Killing is morally wrong, right? But in the law, is killing always wrong?
No.
No.
No, it's not, right? There are defenses to it, and there are ways you can be exonerated or excused or not get into trouble for killing someone, right? So when we talk about morality, keep in mind that it is not a clear-cut case, okay? Now, the next thing I want you to kind of keep in mind, and this is usually again, just a way to kind of get you guys to think. And I use this as an example in real life classes. I can't do it over Zoom. So, pretend or use your imagination for a demonstration that I would have done in class. If one of you was having an allergic reaction to peanuts, let's say, and you're swelling up and you can't breathe, and I had an EpiPen and I could save your life. Do I have an obligation as your professor to save your life?
No.
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 I don't, right? What if I saw you having that allergic reaction? I take out my EpiPen in front of the entire class. I run over, Nicholas, I'm going to use you as the example, right?
Okay.
You're the one having the allergic reaction. I run over to Nicholas and I'm about to shoot him with the EpiPen and save his life. While that's happening, half of the class says, this is too much. They can't take the action. They need to leave. Take my phone and go. And what happens is they leave, and then half the class leaves, and then I decide, you know what, I really should keep the EpiPen to myself because they're so expensive now, and what if my kid has a reaction? And then I say, you know what, Nicholas, sorry. I'm going to just take the EpiPen back and I put it in my bag. Do I have a responsibility then? Or am I, what has changed in that second scenario?
Your intention?
My intentions changed. All right. Well, what about the responsibility that I'm holding?
I
You
think
show
you have
them.
the EpiPen now.
No, you showed you were taking responsibility, hence the half the class left, hence you're taking away the chances of him surviving by somebody calling the ambulance.
Right, why? Why is it different in the second scenario versus the first?
Because you
Because
take
you
away.
attempted.
Half the class
I
thinks you're saving him.
What is this?
Jessica, I think you said it, and Haroon, you guys were like, together you had the answer. Half the class left thinking I was going to save Nicholas's life. So I prevented those people. They thought Nicholas's life was going to be saved. So therefore they did not take an action they may have taken to save Nicholas's life. Maybe they would have called for help, but they left assuming I was going to help him. See, I took, in that second scenario, I took that proactive approach in trying to help him. So I started an action. Once you start an action, you need to finish it up, right? Unless you're going to make everyone aware, oh, no, wait, I changed my mind, I'm not going to do it. So sometimes with the law, and what I want you to see and recognize and keep in mind, one single change of a fact can change the outcome of a case. So I'm always going to ask whenever we read cases, what's the fact pattern here? What's this case about? It's important to know facts in a case because it really can determine the outcome. Make sense, everyone? All right.
Yes.
Good, thank you. Thank you for your acknowledgement. All right, so when we talk about the law, there are classifications of the law. This is listening stuff, not writing. So this is just listening. So sometimes there's differences between substantive law, procedural law, which is the substance. It's the meat and potatoes. It's the essence of the law. Procedure is how things happen. What is the procedure for certain cases taking place? What has to be filed and whatnot. There's also differences between public and private law, which is like government, whenever government is involved with a law, versus private entities, private people, people suing each other. And then there's also, now we're going to spend a lot of time talking about civil and criminal law. So most of this class is going to be civil in nature. The stuff that we talk about is going to be civil in nature. We are going to talk about criminal law because it's fun and you should know about a little bit about criminal law, but there's also different, that's also another way to classify law, which is, civil and criminal. So when we talk about, now focus your attention on criminal. So this is criminal law and you have a chapter on criminal law. When we talk about criminal law, when we talk about the justice system, it's the judicial system, and the judicial system is an adversarial system. So it's the parties, somebody has to initiate the court proceeding, right? If two people get into a fight, an altercation in the street, the court doesn't come and say, oh, wait, you two fought, coming now, you have to appear before the judge. Somebody has to make a complaint, whether it's one of those two people fighting that calls the police and then makes a complaint against somebody else, but somebody has to initiate. It's an adversarial system, okay? So the judicial system is this is a write it down moment. The judicial system is an adversarial system, meaning the parties must initiate. I'm going to say it one more time. The judicial system is an adversarial system, meaning the parties, not the court, the parties must initiate. The next thing, which I'm going to explain, and you're going to write this down because this I always, the next part I always test on, always. It is the standard of proof in a criminal case. You've heard this. If you've ever watched Law and Order, if you've ever watched any of those crime shows or detective shows, what do you have to prove? You got to prove guilt beyond all reasonable doubt.
Question. You said the judicial system is an adversarial
Adversarial system.
adversarial system, Meaning the party, what?
The parties must initiate the action.
Okay.
So when we talk about the standard in a criminal case, in order to prove that somebody's guilty, the district attorney must prove all elements beyond reasonable doubt. Does that sound familiar? Should, right?
Yes.
Okay. So when we prove guilt beyond all reasonable doubt, if you were to equate the standard on a scale of 1 to 100, and you have to prove somebody's guilty in order to send them to jail, and you have to quantify that number, what do you think that number would be?
100?
Not 100, because it's not an absolute, but it's close.
99.
99?
I would say a 90 to a 95%, because it's proof beyond all reasonable doubt. Not all doubt. It's not all doubt, right? Because if somebody's on trial for murder, right? And then the defense says, well, aliens actually came from space and killed this other person. It wasn't my client. Is that reasonable?
No.
That's not reasonable, right? So it's got to be reasonable doubt, proving guilty beyond all reasonable doubt. So when I ask, what is the standard in a criminal case? You need to know it's proving guilt beyond all reasonable doubt. What's wonderful about this country and the judicial system here, as opposed to other places, is that the law presumes you are innocent until you're proven guilty. When we actually apply that in the real world, is that always the case? And now we're going to get a little philosophical.
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah,
I think there's
It might-
definitely biases in court.
there's definitely biases in court. There's definitely biases in the judicial system. I was actually just appointed to something called the Franklin Commission on Equal Justice for the court system as a whole for New York State, right? And so I'm putting together a program with some of my colleagues about just that, the biases in the court system, whether it's employees, whether or not, like there are sometimes things that you just don't even recognize or see. And so it's just making people aware of it. That's all it is, just making people aware of these things. But again, when you are on trial for something, you're supposed to be on trial, and your jury is what? It's supposed to consist of members, your peers, your community, right? So it's these people that are determining somebody's guilt or innocence based on the facts, based on the law. So kind of keep these things in the back of your mind as we talk about the standard of proof, the law presuming you're innocent until you're accused. When somebody is in a criminal case, and what is criminal law? The point of criminal law is to punish, right? So sometimes when you're punished in a criminal sense, if you get a ticket and you're going to criminal court, you know, what's going to be the punishment for a traffic ticket, let's say?
Pay a fine.
Pay a fine.
Fines.
So fines, exactly. So you could be fined for a criminal action. It could just be a monetary. What else can happen in a criminal case if you're found to be guilty?
Jail time.
Say that again?
Jail time? Prison?
Jail time, right? Jail. Your freedom can be taken away. And sometimes it could also be both, right? It could be a fine and imprisonment. Sometimes it could be probation. Depending on the state that you live in this country, it could also be death, right? You could be the punishment could be death. And the purpose of all these things are to deter, to stop people or to prevent people from doing these things, right? The system is premised on deterrent, rehabilitation, and retribution. Whether or not that actually happens, but those are the things. This is now what I'm about to say is a write it down moment, okay? There are 2 essential elements of a crime. So every crime has 2 essential elements. And they are, I'm going to say to you in Latin, and then we're going to, break it down in actual English. But you can impress your friends by speaking to them in Latin, by saying, oh, did you know what the, essential elements of a crime are? We'll tell you, let me tell you. So it's, the first one is actus. I'm going to put this actually in the chat because it's Latin. I want to make sure you get it right. It's actually actus reus and mens rea. So I'm going to put in the chat. Right? So actus reus is the first one and mens rea is the second. So I don't think you guys took Latin. So what do you think actus reus is in English? Essential elements of a crime.
Is it
the
the act of the crime?
I think Compton had said it. Somebody else had said it. The act. It is the actual act of a crime. That's the actus reus. Now, what do you think the mens rea is?
It's
The
the answer.
rights.
The knowledge that you know you're committing a crime.
The knowledge. If you were to use one word for mens rea, it has also the word men, it has the letters men in it.
Mental.
Huh?
Mental.
Mental. That's right. It's the mental component. So in order to have a crime, you need to have these 2 elements. You need to have the actual act and you need to have the actual mental component. Back in the day, when it was a live lecture, I would give examples of things, but since I'm recording this and I don't know where it's going to go, there are certain examples I would like to give you, but I'm not because I don't know where it's going to go. So just kind of keep these things in mind. Although, you know what? I'll stop recording for a second. Hold on. Hold on one second. You know what? No, because then it's gonna stop and pause. All right, but let me give you a clean example, if you will. So sometimes, you get like so pissed off at somebody, right? And you imagine in your head, just doing things because, they've pissed you off so much or whatever, right? If you're just thinking about it, like killing them or hurting them or getting them into trouble, I'm not advocating. Do not kill, hurt, harm, murder anyone. Let me repeat that. This is not advice to do any of that stuff. Do not commit any crimes whatsoever. That's bad. But if you're thinking about it, the thinking component, you can't get in trouble for that. You cannot get in trouble for thinking of committing a crime. However, if you start, let's say you have an arch nemesis and you want to destroy your arch nemesis and you come up with an idea of how to do that. And then you start Googling how to destroy your arch nemesis and you start ordering stuff online to destroy your arch nemesis. Can you get in trouble now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why?
It's
Why?
Because there's mental, like you have the intention to do it. So there's
Yeah.
premeditation.
Premeditation, good. And what else?
You acted on it.
Yeah, you see, you started taking the steps. You started putting your mental component into action, right? So you could be charged for attempted obliteration of your arch nemesis, right? Attempted murder. You haven't actually committed the murder, but you've now taken steps to do so. So you can get in trouble for that. Don't do any of those things, FYI. Don't do that. Stay away from the criminal system, okay? Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. So this is now a listening, not a write it down. So when we talk about mens rea, the mental component, there's actually 3 different types of mens rea. Again, listening, you don't have to write. There's the purposeful type of mental mens rea, which is intent to cause harm to someone. There's the knowing as one type of mens rea, which is you're aware that your conduct is prohibited and almost certain to cause harm. And then there's reckless, which is conscious disregard for a unjustifiable risk that could take place. So reckless behavior, the way, because sometimes that one, like some students have a hard time grasping that. It's like going 90 miles an hour in your vehicle on Highland Boulevard or Richmond Avenue, right? That's reckless. You can't go those speeds because there's people there, there's other cars there, right? So for you to do that, that's reckless behavior, and you're disregarding the risk that's involved, right? You're not intending to kill someone or injure somebody else. That's not your purpose. Your purpose is not to do that, but you're taking actions that are so reckless that the end result is going to be hurting somebody. Okay. All right. There are some areas of criminal law where the liability is absolute, where the mere act, regardless of the mental intention, the mere act will send you to jail. Okay. And that's when it's sale of an alcohol to a minor, right? So if you own a store and you sold alcohol to a minor and they had given you a fake ID or they looked older, it doesn't matter. You selling it to a minor is going to get you in trouble. There's also statutory rape, right? Doesn't matter how old you think an individual is. If you do it with somebody under a particular age, you're going to get into trouble for that. Okay. The next topic, I want you to listen carefully. You're going to write it down. And this is one of those things that are going to carry throughout the semester. And that is the topic of vicarious liability. So I'm going to put it down in your chat so you have it spelled right. Okay. Vicarious liability. And vicarious liability is a very interesting concept, because what it does is it actually imposes liability on one person for the acts committed by another. So an employee does something wrong. The employer can get fired, even though it was the employee that did something wrong. Why? So let's say you are, let's say like McDonald's or Burger King, right? And you have the cashier was stealing money. Well, the manager can get fired because they did not know, or they failed to ascertain, or they failed to catch that the employee was stealing money. So vicarious liability is when one person gets blamed for the acts of another. Liability is imposed on one for the acts of another. This is also an example I usually give. It happened now a number of years ago, but maybe you'll still know it. There was a coach for Penn State. I think his name is Sandusky. Does it sound familiar?
Yes.
Yeah.
What happened in that case, if you remember or if you know?
Was she like molesting or something?
Yeah, it was.
Yep. But what happened? Not only did he take the fall, who else
Penn
took the
State
fall?
got all the sanctions from the NCAA.
I think there was, was it this basketball? Penn State? Or was it football?
It was
Football,
football.
right? So the head coach also got in trouble because it was the assistant coach doing all the wrong stuff, right? Doing the abuse. But the head coach knew about it. And he did not take the proper action. He did not stop it. He did not report it. So the head coach also was in trouble. Why? That's vicarious. That's based on the theory of vicarious liability. Okay? You're going to see this concept come up time and time again. So I just want to make sure you understand it, okay? All right. So when we talk about, let's say a corporation is being punished, Enron, the Madoff Corporation. How do you punish, in a criminal sense, a corporation?
Well, the corporation itself is represented in court, like it's its own thing. So you have to sue the corporation.
Right? But now when we sue, you're suing for money. But if we're talking about a criminal sense, how can you punish a corporation?
A fine.
And shut it down.
A fine, shut it down. And what you can do is, if the acts committed were so wrong, you can send those people to jail, to prison, right? If the acts were so egregious, such a high level of negligence, those people responsible for those acts, they're hiding behind the corporate veil. We're going to talk about corporations at the end of the semester, but when the conduct is so bad, those individuals can be punished by imprisonment, like Madoff. I hope you all know what happened with Madoff, right?
Yeah, he ran
No, you
the
guys are-
financial scheme, right?
It was the largest Ponzi scheme in the history of the world.
Right.
And so he was put in prison. And a lot of the people that worked for him were also imprisoned, right? Because, that's for like 100 years. I think their sentence was like a ridiculous amount, but it was just to show the severity of what he had done that was wrong. Okay, when we talk about the punishment of corporations, it is, it's usually fines and things of that sort. And also like the punishment as far as prison. White collar crime, you probably have heard that term. Those are crimes that are not violent crimes, but usually involve deceit, corruption, breach of trust, things of that sort. It could be embezzlement, forgery, false advertising, antitrust laws. So that's white collar crime. Let me just look at the syllabus because I want to make sure that we're fine still. Okay. Okay. When we talk about like an example of white collar crime is a case called People versus Farrell. It's not on your syllabus, so I'm not going to be testing you on it, but People versus Farrell was about a case of trade secrets, and the defendant in that case had stolen trade secrets right before he left his corporation, and he was like, oh well, I only stole a trade secret, it doesn't count, it's not like I did something bad, but the court said no, you actually, that's considered a white collar crime, so you can be punished for that. I'm trying to think what else I want you to know. Okay, this is an important concept. I don't know how you're going to write it down, but it's important that you understand it. And actually, I can give you this example. So you've heard me use the word elements of a crime, or elements in definitions of things, or like when a DA has to prove a case, they have to prove, all the elements beyond all reasonable doubt. Well, crime, especially criminal law, there's a lot of elements in it. So I'm going to actually give you this example. I'm going to put it in your chat. That way you can see it. So when we talk about elements in a crime, so you have here larceny. I put larceny in the chat. You see I have numbers next to it. The full definition of larceny is the trespassory taking and carrying away of or exercising dominion or control over personal property of another with the intent of depriving that victim permanently of goods. Every one of those numbers is actually considered an element. So therefore, when an ADA has to bring this case before a jury, they need to prove each one of these beyond a reasonable doubt in order for that crime to actually stick. So there has to be a trespassory aspect to it. There has to be a taking of somebody's property. You have to carry away, control it. It's got to be personal property with the intent of depriving this victim. If somebody did trespass, did take something away, did carry it away, and it was personal property that belonged to somebody else, but they took it and they returned it, you don't have larceny. because you don't have all the elements there. Right? So when we talk about burglary, when we talk about murder, when we talk about embezzlement, when we talk about all these criminals or these crimes, every crime has, in its definition, has a whole bunch of elements in it. And so every element must be proven beyond all reasonable doubt. Okay? All right. So in your chapter on criminal law, you have a lot of different definitions for a lot of different crimes. Look at those for fun. I think that those are interesting, so you kind of have an idea. I mean, I highlighted the ones that are most, I think the most interesting, like embezzlement, false pretenses, robbery, burglary, extortion, bribery. So the definitions are in your book, take a look at those. Now, when we talk about defenses, right? We talked about now the crimes being committed. And remember I talked about that example of like, is killing always wrong? Is it always punished? And we said no. Well, sometimes there are defenses to acts. And so when we talk about defenses, this is important. So this is a write it down moment. You cannot use force to defend property. That's not going to be excused. So let me say it again. You cannot use force to defend property. So let's say I had a purse, right? A purse that I loved. And I'm carrying my purse and I'm walking down the street and somebody takes my purse and runs. I can't shoot them to kill them, right? I cannot use force to protect my property. If, however, I had my purse and somebody was lunging at me or hurting me or hurting one of my children, I can then use force to stop them. So force can be used to defend human life. You cannot use force to defend property. Okay? All right. Yes, Latron.
Yeah, I have a question. What if hypothetically someone's on private property? Can you use force? Like, for example, like a co-op building, like on the stoop, like people are sitting there hanging out. Could you technically, as a superintendent, use force to tell them to, to remove them physically off their private property?
So I'm going to need more facts to give you my answer, because if it's private property and they live there, it's different than if they were trespassing and they were a guest.
They don't live there, period. Like,
okay, so if
of
they
course
don't live
would ask.
there, huh?
Of course, that super would ask, if they live there or not. If they do,
Yeah.
then they can chill there. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Whatever. But they don't. We tell them to leave, but they don't move. So
then you shouldn't be using force to remove them. You should be calling the cops and saying, I have somebody who's trespassing on property.
Okay.
Unless you feel your life was in danger or your life is being threatened, you can't use force. So if, however, and I thought you were actually going somewhere else.
Oh.
If, however, somebody was in your home, if somebody enters your home, a lot of cases and a lot of states say you can use force to protect your home because that's your home. Then there's different cases and different interpretations of, let's say somebody is inside your home and now they are leaving your house, but they shouldn't be there in the first place. If you shoot them, stab them in the back, are you going to be held responsible or not?
Yeah.
You will be held responsible.
Why?
I don't know all the implications, but I just know that, like, I've heard, because my dad works in law enforcement and he always told me, like, if you're defending your house and the criminal turns their back to them, like you can't hurt them.
That's right. Why? I'll tell you why. I'll give you the legal
No
reason
longer
for
a
it.
threat
Say it again, Compton. I think you said it.
because they're no longer a threat if their back is to you.
Their back is to you. They are actually retreating. So, but again, if they're in your house, I think sometimes that's different. As long as if they're outside of your house, it's different implications than inside your home, especially different states have different rules about this. But you never want to hurt somebody in the back. Like because then your liability, you're going to incur that liability, and it's going to be very hard for you to say, my defense is self-defense. You can't use that at that point. Why? Because they're retreating. If, however, their back is to you and they look like they're going up the stairs to your bedrooms where your children are, right? And you hurt them in the back to stop them, then is that different?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
because you're defending someone.
Life.
That's right. You are defending another life, right? You're preventing them. It's not like their back is going towards the front door where they're trying to retreat. If they're looking to go upstairs or where other human life is, then that could be then a valid excuse, right? But again, you don't know whether or not it's going to be valid until you go before a jury of your peers who then hears all the facts and makes that determination, okay?
I have a quick question also to like
Sure,
piggyback off the other one. So
sure.
if someone's on your property, but they have like, they picked up like a shovel or like a big rock or something, and I don't know if they're like coming towards the house, or maybe if they're, I don't know if they're just standing there, would that still
If you
constitute
feel,
force?
if you
If I feel
feel,
threatened by them?
yeah, if you feel threatened, then you can use force to stop them, to debilitate them, right? Because you feel like your life is threatened. But again, I say, it's not an absolute yes or no, right? Because
Still
what's
has to
going to
be
end,
decided by,
huh?
it still
Yeah.
has to be decided by a jury.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
going to be your first hurdle is going to be the ADA, whether or not they're going to press charges, right? Whether or not they're going to bring you to court, whether or not there's going to be a grand jury indictment. After the grand jury, then is there going to actually be a real jury and it's going to go to crime? Is it going to go actually before the jury, or are you going to be pleading out, right? It depends on whether it's the daytime, the nighttime, the circumstances. Is it somebody that you know? Is it somebody with a mental condition that you're aware of that does this on a regular basis? So there's going to be a lot of questions. So I can't really say yes or no, but I kind of gave you the framework to know, you want to be able to, if you're defending your life or the life of somebody else, then you have a better chance of using that as a defense. Yes,
Okay.
Compton.
Oh yeah, Professor, I have a question.
Sure.
I know that in some cases the sidewalk belongs to the homeowner, but if the city wants to plant something or do something in front of your house, it belongs to the city. So at what point when you're defending yourself for your property, is the sidewalk, your property?
That's a very good question. It's a very good question, and I don't have an answer to you. I think it's probably going to be depending on the proximity of the sidewalk to your home. If you're standing there, in front of this person and you're like, well, you're on a sidewalk, and I'm, you know what I mean? It's going to depend. It's going to be depending on a lot of facts. I'd have to see a diorama of the house, the property where you're standing, where the other person is standing, to kind of give you, if snow falls on the sidewalk, it's your responsibility to clean it up. If somebody falls and breaks their foot, their leg, it's going to be your responsibility, right?
Yes.
So it is your responsibility in most instances. And sometimes it's the government when they're, fixing up something because there's utilities underneath. So for the most part, I would say it's considered your property, but I wouldn't go shooting people or, stabbing them or anything like that because you think they're on your property. I will tell you that when we first moved into the first home that my husband and I owned, it took us a year to go on our honeymoon. When we came back, our house had been burglarized. We had lost everything. And for a long time, I would just be standing there looking at anyone that came close to the house and wondering, did they steal my stuff? I'm going to go after them. And then I had spoken to the cops and they're like, you can't do that. You can't do that, you know? So you got to be careful. You got to be careful. I know there's 2 other questions up. I'm going to just turn on the lights because it's getting very dark in here and I can't see. It's like, one second. So we actually have a lot of stuff left to cover. So I'm happy to answer your questions because this is usually the most riveting of the semester as far as these questions. And I wanted to try to let you guys out today early because it is the first day of class. I didn't want to blow your brains. But I will answer Haroon, I think, then Marvin, then Jessica. Go ahead.
All right, so as you were saying, if somebody breaks into your house and let's say they see you, but don't see you as a threat, but continue to go through your house looking for stuff, can you use force then after you tell them?
Yeah, if they're in your house, and again, please don't invite people to kill them in your home. Like, if somebody's in your house, you have the right to use force against them in your home. That's the only place that you're allowed to do that. And again, that's based on my knowledge from taking criminal law, a decade ago. You might want to research the law now, especially in New York versus other states.
Oh, I forgot one thing. And they have their back turned to you at that point because they're going through your house, and then you decide to attack them.
You can. I think, if it was me, I would, because I don't know. They're in my home and they're not supposed to be there.
Oh.
So I would take a big vase and knock them over the head with it and then call the police.
All right.
That's what I would do. Okay. Next was Marvin.
Hello, if someone approaches your vehicle and you're in the vehicle and someone approaches it with a bat, if you feel threatened, would that be a reason to run them over with the car?
That's a really interesting question because you're actually inside your vehicle, and can that be considered your safe space where they're invading your space?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. That's definitely a gray area. They're coming at you with a bat. They're trying to physically harm you. So can you run them over? Why can't you just go away from them?
What if you're cornered? What if you're in a parking lot and there's a wall behind you and the only way you can go is forward? If you get out of the car, he can hit you with the bat.
Okay. I think it's reasonable. If you feel threatened, there's no other alternative, then yes. But again, I will say this again. Please do not use any of this as legal advice or anything of the criminal nature. I always say that. Please don't do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Jessica, you're next.
So you said that you can use force to defend human life, but is it also applicable to animal life? Yeah, if somebody were to attack a dog.
So the law is not clear on that. So I can't give you a yes or no definitive because I haven't seen any cases on that. I will tell you, however, that there is a big move that in the law to protect animals and punish severely for their harm. So whether or not you can shoot a human being who is threatening your dog, I don't know. I haven't seen any cases on that, but I do know that there was a case on Staten Island where there was a woman, I think, that had dumped the dog out the car or something. And there was a lot of protests in front of the DA's office. And I think she got a year in jail.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Marvin, is your hand still up with a new question or is it still up from the old question? Okay. All right. So I'm going to move. Say it again, old?
Yeah, it's old.
Okay, got it. So that's the defense of person and property. There is also, I don't know if I mentioned it, the difference between, I don't know if it's in this lesson or a different lesson, but I'm going to say it because I remember it. So The difference between also jail and prison, I want you to know that. So jail, if you're going to jail, it's for less than a year and it's usually a misdemeanor. And when we talk about prison, it's usually a felony more than a year. So the differences between jail and prison are what I just said. Jail, usually a misdemeanor, usually less than 1 year. And prison is more than a year, usually felonies. Okay? So the next thing I want you to know, because we still have to go through chapter 7, is this is the last stuff for criminal law. And those are the differences between the, not the differences, it's what is the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment, okay? So you've heard, I'm sure you've heard, again, if you've watched any of these shows, you've heard of the 4th Amendment. And the 4th Amendment protects people. So you need to know this, FYI. This is write it down, 4th, 5th, and 6th. So just put a note to yourself that you need to know this for the exam. I always test on this. The 4th Amendment protects people against unreasonable searches and seizures. So if you have cops that come to your house without a proper warrant and seize certain material, and then they use the evidence against you, if they didn't have a proper warrant, it has to be thrown out. They can't use that in a case unless you gave them permission to search your home. So they come in and they say, hey, you know, there was a robbery. We just wanted to kind of take a look around and see if there's any evidence. And you say, sure, go ahead. Why not? And you have evidence of this robbery, or you have illegal material in your home that's in plain view, that can be seized. And then that's on you because you left your stuff out in plain view. So then they can take that even without a warrant, and then that can be used against you. Latrim, you have a question?
Yeah. Let's say hypothetically you do allow the cops to come in
I always love the hypotheticals. Go ahead.
and they find something illegal, you go to court, all that stuff. You just tell them you didn't do it. You didn't allow them to come in. So what happens there?
So if they came in and you did not give them permission,
No, you did give them permission, but then when they find out the legal stuff that you have in the house, then later when you're in court, you go like, I didn't give them permission.
so then it's going to be your word against theirs. And so then it's a credibility issue.
Okay.
So, and again, is the stuff, even if you did not give them permission to enter, and they like from the crack, let's say you opened the door, right? And from the door, they were able to see stuff that was illegal in plain view on the table, they can arrest you for that because it's in plain view, they can see it. But if it was like in drawers and they had to rummage through it, then they shouldn't be. And usually a warrant will have specific areas or specific stuff that they're looking for, and that's what they can kind of take. And I always like to give the example of, like, let's say you live with a roommate and you're a good angel, you don't have anything illegal, and then cops come and they say, I want to search, and then you say yes, you give permission for the cops to search the entire apartment, even your roommate's area. Well, then that can be used because somebody that has dominion over the household gave permission. But if the arrangement that you have with your roommate is, like your roommate is that type that always keeps to themselves, their door's always locked, they have the skull and crossbones picture on them, no, you're not allowed to enter, and you gave permission for the cops to enter, well, then that might not hold up in court because you did not have permission to enter your roommate's room to begin with, so you couldn't have given permission to somebody else. So really, again, it depends on what? It depends on the facts of the case, okay? So that's your 4th Amendment. Your 5th Amendment is, you've heard this before, it protects against self-incrimination. What do you people say? What does everybody say? I plead the 5th. I plead the 5th, right? It means you have a right not to incriminate yourself. You have a right not to testify against yourself. And realistically speaking, right? Think about real life. If you are a juror and somebody is being accused of murder, robbery, burglary, whatever it is, and they don't take the stand because they have a right not to take the stand, what do you think automatically?
They're guilty.
They're guilty. They did it. Why are they not defending themselves? Human nature. It's human nature. Even though the law says the burden is on the ADA to prove it, and you just stay quiet, you know, that sometimes that's just how it is. That's the Fifth Amendment. And the Sixth Amendment is that you have a right to a speedy public trial by an impartial jury, and that you have to be given a notice of the witnesses, and you have to be given the assistance of counsel. This is usually like criminal, where your life is in danger. You don't have the legal right to assistance of counsel in fighting a traffic ticket. No, it's when your life, your freedom is at risk. So that's the Sixth Amendment, okay? So that concludes criminal law. How you guys holding up?
Doing
Alive?
fine.
Good.
Pretty
All
good.
right. Good.
Pretty solid.
Good, excellent. So, because I want to keep on track, so now we're going to move on to intentional torts. So we're switching gears a little bit, and we're now going to talk about, let me just see here. So I can actually give you this option, guys, because it is the first day. So we will have time next class. I can add chapter 7 to all the other chapters, or do you want to do it tonight? It's up to you. So show of fake hands, your fake yellow hands that you have up here, who wants to do chapter 7 tonight? 1, 2, 3.
I don't know how to raise my hand, but I'll do it
Fake,
tonight.
okay. All right. 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 8, 9. All right. I have 6, 8. All right. Not bad. And now put your fake hands down. And how many people want to do chapter 7 with all the other stuff? Because it's all going to be civil next week or next class. 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 9, 11, 12. So basically we have 20 people that voted out of 44. So you guys aren't really, you know. What I'll do is, let me just take a look here. I will do a little bit of chapter, and we'll do compromise. I'll do a little bit of chapter 7 just so you get an idea of the flavor of civil law versus criminal law, and then next week we'll tackle on the elements section, because that's really actually important, and I want to make sure that you focus on that. When we talk about criminal law, we talked about proving guilt beyond all reasonable doubt. And we said that that's like a 90 to 95% scale of proof, right? The standard in a civil case is called preponderance of the evidence. So whenever we have a civil case, it's by preponderance of the evidence. I'm going to put this in your chat. This is something you need to know. So in a civil case, it's preponderance of the evidence. And if you were to equate that to a number scale from 1 to 100 in a civil case, what do you think that number would be?
Professor, I have a question.
Sure.
What does the word preponderance mean?
Like it's like the weight of it, like.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So preponderance of the evidence is the standard of proof in a civil case. So if you were to equate that on a number scale, like we did for beyond all reasonable doubt, saying that's 90 to 95, what do you think in a civil case to prove liability, what would that be from 1 to 100?
95.
51.
Somebody said it.
95.
Anything above 50.
It's
51.
anything above 51.
Yeah.
It's actually anything above 50. So it could be 50.1. So if you have a scale, it's got to be just a tiny bit more in the favor of the person suing. Whenever we talk about civil cases, it's usually 95% somebody suing somebody else for money. And so if you've ever watched Judge Judy, if you've ever watched any of those daytime judge shows or any judge show, the person who's bringing the lawsuit has to prove by preponderance of the evidence that their version of the events is more likely than not the correct version. So as long as they're able to show that by 51, it's got to be more than 50%. So 51%, then they win the case. It doesn't have to be 90, it doesn't have to be 75, just more likely than not that they're correct. So for the next couple of chapters we talk about, and then when we talk about contract law, which is for basically most of the duration of the semester, right? Now we're talking about more likely than not 51% preponderance of the evidence in cases, okay? When we talk about intentional torts, which is that chapter 7, this is a listening, not a writing. We talk about assault, battery, automobile accidents, professional malpractice, things of that sort. So you get into a car accident, that's, 51%, who's right and who's wrong. Malpractice, who's right, who's wrong by 51%. And usually the principles behind these types of cases is compensate, which means money, right? Compensate the person. Simon, can you turn that off or go somewhere else, please? Compensate the person who suffered harm. I have hands, yellow hands raised. So Ezra, I don't know if you're an old hand or a new hand. Okay, Liam?
Yeah, so I was wondering if, so you're saying like a car accident is civil, but would it then be criminal if it's a car accident and you killed someone?
Correct. So then it'll have both components. It'll have the civil case for the monetary, but then there could be a criminal aspect if somebody was killed. There could also be a criminal accident aspect if somebody was drinking while driving, if they were under the influence. So then those are criminal aspects of it.
So does then that become two different cases?
Yeah, correct. So because you still have damage to physical property, right? So somebody's gonna want their cars fixed. So you'll have that, and then you'll also have the criminal aspect as well.
I have a question.
Sure.
So wait, so what if it's a car crash and car crashes can happen when nobody's at fault, right? That's possible, right?
Give me an example of no fault.
I don't even know. Like, I'm a new driver. I'm just saying, like, I don't drink, I don't smoke. But like, suppose like I'm going on go or something like that, or the light is just changed, but a car is speeding down. But that means the other car will be at fault. I don't know what would be a situation where no one's at fault, but then that person dies. So are you telling me I'm going to jail for killing someone?
Well, if it wasn't your fault, you wouldn't be. So if you're following the speed limit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And somebody's speeding and they hit you because they were speeding and they die.
Oh, how about this? So they get hit from the back by another car and pushes them out, but I'm already going because our light is on green. And then that person dies. So
how many cars are involved right now?
3 cars. 3 cars.
You're putting a lot of thought into this and you're a new driver, so just take it easy. And in New York, if you get rear-ended, like the person like that hit you is automatically, at fault. Like,
okay.
So you don't want to rear end anyone. You don't want to hit anybody, like, because if you're behind them, you're automatically going to incur liability.
Okay.
And if somebody dies, you're not necessarily going to go to jail because it's going to depend on the circumstances of the case. If they were drinking, if they were texting, if they were on the phone, if they were speeding, so it might not be your fault.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I'd have to have more facts. And when you kill somebody, then we can talk. But don't do it.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Don't do it. Don't do it. You'll be fine.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Let's try. You have a question.
Yeah, I think I know she's talking about. I've seen some accidents because I'm bored. I just watch YouTube videos. It's like I have nothing better to do. And
You should volunteer for some organizations. I'll hook you up some charities.
yeah, why not? But in the video, there's this guy. He's driving God knows how fast, hits someone. That car flips, hits another car, and kills the person. So I think that's what she's talking about. Like that
So
person.
she's the middle person where she had no fault in, although she physically hit somebody else and killed them, it was because of the precipitating factor of that initial vehicle.
Yeah.
Okay. She would not incur liability. As a matter of fact, she'd be suing also. But sometimes when you have three parties like that, then all of them are going to go to court to ascertain liability from a personal standpoint as far as property damage, and then from a criminal standpoint as well. There's something we're going to get to. It's called the but-for factor. It's actually the next thing we were going to talk about. So whenever you have a lawsuit in any of these intentional torts, there are these 5 things you have to know. And I was going to leave this for next week, but since we kind of talk about it, we'll talk about it now and we'll talk about it next week. So one of these 5 elements is the but-for factor, B-U-T space 4. But for that first car hitting that second car, that accident would have never happened. So they're actually the but-for causation.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to tell you these 5 elements now. Write these down. I always test on this. I'm going to talk about it briefly now, but I'm also going to talk about it at length next week because I don't want to I want you to guys to, I wanted today to ease you into the semester. But if you drop, you drop because this is how it's going to be every week. So, so the elements of any of these torts, personal injury, professional malpractice, things of that sort, there's 5 elements and they are, I'll put them in your chat. It's duty, breach, proximate cause, actual cause, and damages. I'm going to put it in your chat right now. Okay. Duty, breach, proximate cause, actual cause, damages. In order for you to be successful in any lawsuit, you must have these 5 elements. And we're going to talk about each one at length, but I'll do that next week. Let me just see something actually. Let me look at the syllabus. There's the, all right. I'll leave Philip Morris and White versus Samsung till next week. But what I want to do is I want to also tell you about how I like to conduct classes. Whenever you see a case on the syllabus, you need to know those cases. So if I ask for volunteers and nobody has read the particular case that's on the syllabus, then I will not go over the case and I'm going to automatically test you on it. And I'll tell you why. The only thing I'm giving you guys is reading. So I expect you to read the cases. If you want to form little groups and say, all right, you know what? I'm going to be responsible for this case next week. So if the professor calls, I know it. Great. You need to read. That's the only thing I ask of you. If you don't read, I'm going to get annoyed. And then I'm going to test you on it. And we don't want that. We want to have a good, good semester, good start, good all that stuff. So cases are fun. You know why? Because cases are like stories, and stories that bring the law to life. They're very fun. They're a lot of fun. So read them. All right. Any questions on any of the stuff that we covered so far or this semester in general?
No.
No. Right. Muhammad, you have a question? Muhammad Abdullah?
Yeah, when you're talking about the Fourth Amendment, you said that it
Yes.
protects people from unreasonable searches and seizures. And
Yes, I
I
did.
understand like in a situation when you're dealing with the cops, but does that also apply with like the TSA or like when traveling and stuff?
That the criminal stuff, the Fourth Amendment applies to criminal intervention. So it's the government. It protects you against the government. So
okay.
unless if it's a private entity, you don't have those rights. They can search your stuff. So at work, let's say, right? Even though I work for the state court system, I have no right to privacy in my office. So anything I have in the drawers of my desk, it's public property. They can go in there and do whatever they want, like computer, it's the same thing.
So let's say you're traveling, right, from abroad, and like they just ask you, right? Oh, like, can you search your bag? You have to consent to it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was my
It's a
question.
private entity, so they have the right. The Fourth Amendment, all those, they're preventing the government from having too much authority and power over individuals. It doesn't apply to private entities.
Okay, thank you for clearing that.
You're welcome.
Professor,
Yes, sir.
isn't that why it's because the airports aren't considered, I think, public airports, they're privately owned, that's why?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah,
Okay, so
Professor,
yeah,
sorry, I
yeah.
just have one question. I'm actually
Sure.
studying for the court officers test. I'm gonna take the test. Yeah.
Really?
In December. And I just had a
Okay.
question about the Fourth Amendment. It says protects people against unreasonable search and seizures, but what about if an officer has the factor of probable cause?
So probable cause outside, it's then they can do it, because when we talk about searches and seizures, it usually applies to your home, your car, your personal property. If you're walking on the street and there's probable cause, or if there's a reason to pull you over, probable cause, that gives the officer the right to further investigate.
Okay.
Good luck on the court officer's exam. Maybe I'll see you in the courthouse one day.
Yeah, I've been studying hard, so I should do good.
I have to tell you guys, totally side comment. So one of the classes I taught at CSI, one of my students, it was a 400 level class. He was studying to be a cop. And then I saw him in the street, like by the courthouse. He was working for the precinct. And I saw him and I was like, oh my God, you were my student and now you're a cop. And I gave him a big hug because, you know, it's nice to see you guys out into the real world. And he was physically in my class, so I saw him. Now I see mostly, you know, names, not really actual faces, but it's nice to see that. Like, it's, you know, I'll speak for myself as a professor. When I see my students growing up, or, you know, going into like higher education or law school or the force or anything like that, it's like, oh, that's so nice. It makes me happy. So good luck to you all. All right, any other questions? Okay,
Yes, I have
so
a question.
yes, go
Boy.
ahead. No,
All right,
go
it's
ahead.
about like, so you know, like with the vaccine. So you said exam are gonna be like in class, right? We have to go to
No, it's gonna be on Blackboard.
on Blackboard. Okay. So like I have a class that was supposed to be synchronized, but now the department is saying they want exams in class. So now they're saying that we have to get vaccinated just to show up for the exam.
My class, it's gonna be on Blackboard, the
Do
exams.
you know anything about that? Like, do you think I would
don't.
have to get vaccinated to go to take a test? Because it
Talk to
says
my sister about
only
that.
if you have hybrid classes. I don't even have a hybrid class.
I'm just an adjunct professor in the world of CSI. So I think you should check with your advisor or the program chair.
Yeah, student affairs. So I'm just waiting for an email back.
Last
You don't
time-
have to
last
be, you
time I
don't have to
saw-
be vaccinated to go on campus. You can, they are giving people the option to have a negative COVID test to be on
Yeah,
campus
you
if you're
only
not
have to be-
vaccinated.
You only have to be vaccinated if you're taking like a hybrid class, right?
You
Yeah,
have to be
you have to-
vaccinated if you want to be
I
on
just want you to know
campus,
this is being
period.
still recorded, so I'm gonna stop recording and then you guys
Okay.
can kind of keep